Good morning, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, Minister, ambassadors. I feel very honored to be here today in Ireland, in Dublin, in Croke Park. I'm more used to Lansdowne Road. Well, I was used to Lansdowne Road, but I'm very happy to be here in the center of the world, I heard this morning. So first of all, I would like to thank the organizers, for their invitation to be part of this discussion of environmental sustainability of food production, which is recognized, and I would say rightly so, as an overarching theme in the Foodwise 2025 in terms of ambition, in terms of challenges, and in terms, and I will insist on that, of opportunities. Indeed, natural resources and ecosystem as a basis for agricultural production, and therefore the sustainable and efficient use of these natural resources is of fundamental interest for the agricultural sector, but also for the rest of the food chain. But environmental sustainability, and this has been raised several times this morning, has to go hand in hand with the other two dimensions of sustainability, encompassing the economic viability for farmers and the social responsibility. And it is only when these three aspects are addressed together in a well-balanced manner that we can ensure that the agricultural and the food system will be really sustainable. The enhancement of environmental performance of agriculture and the promotion of a sustainable management of natural resources has been the focus of several CAP reform processes over the last 20 years. This is well reflected now in the current CAP, with the combined implementation of cross-compliance mechanism, the green payment, the voluntary measures within rural development, for the preservation of ecosystem, for the support to resource efficiency, for the promotion of the decarbonization of the economy, and in particular of the food sector. But also as part of this green infrastructure of the CAP, another important factor for environmental sustainability lies in the support for education, training, and advisory support, because qualified farmers, qualified workers, and qualified entrepreneurs are essential for operating in a fast-changing environment, capturing and applying the opportunities offered by new technologies. And I have to say that all these efforts over the last 20 years have contributed to improve the environmental and climate performance of agriculture, and some concrete results have already been achieved over the past years. Just to quote a few of them at EU level, agricultural greenhouse gas emissions have been reduced by 21%, since 1990. Ammonia emissions have been reduced by more than 24% over the same period. Nitrates in rivers have declined by 17% since 92, and at the same time, organic farming has progressed by more than 5% on an annual basis over the last 10 years. But in spite of these positive results, we believe that agriculture must strive to do more and must strive to do much more, in particular to help the achievement of objectives set at EU level by 2020 and by 2030. On the one hand, agriculture is at the heart of several EU commitments at international level, and these commitments are aimed at enhancing sustainability. I could name the UN Sustainable Development Goals, I could name the Paris Agreement, I could talk about the Convention on Biological Diversity. On the other hand, agriculture plays a major role in the achievement of a number of EU and environmental and climate objectives and targets. And here I would like to mention a few of them. Regarding biodiversity, we have an objective to stop the loss of biodiversity and ecosystem services in the EU and to stop global biodiversity loss by 2020. Regarding water, we have an objective to achieve a good status for all water bodies in the EU under the Water Framework Directive. Regarding air, we have an objective of reduction targets for the most important air pollutant, including ammonia, which should be reduced by 19% by 2030. As regards energy, the Commission has set a proposal on energy at a minimum share of renewable energy in the EU energy mix of at least 27% by 2030, and that the forestry and agricultural sector have a real role to play with the production of biomass. And the EU has also proposed a 30% reduction of energy consumption by 2030. Finally, with regard to climate legislation, the EU is committed to reduce its greenhouse gas emission by 40% by 2030 as compared to 2005. And this translates into national reduction targets for the so-called effort-sharing sectors, which include the agricultural sector. And this reduction, 40%, includes the emission from livestock, including manure, include a reduction of emission from mineral fertilizer and from land conversion to arable. And here I must underline that while the farm sector has limited mitigation potential in itself to reduce emission, it has the potential, together with forestry, to help other sectors to decarbonize by sequestering carbon into soil and by producing biomass for the substitution of fossil-based material. And encouraging and enhancing these activities will be important for agriculture and for the whole economy. At the same time, agriculture has to adapt to the growing stress from a changing climate, as agriculture is most exposed to the risk of global warming, with possible negative impact on the production potential. But even if agricultural production will always be connected with a certain level of emissions, we believe that more can and more should be done in the future to lower further the emissions from the farm and from the food sector at large. Achieving that by simply scaling down the level of production to reduce emission, in our view, is not the right option in terms of growing food demand, linked, I think, with a growing global population. In addition, putting heavy restriction on EU production may also cause carbon leakage as production will move overseas, where environmental standards may be lower. Thus, measures that can mitigate climate and increase resilience without undermining our production potential should be prioritized and encouraged. Examples of these measures include livestock disease management and breeding techniques. They include also optimizing feeding strategies, genetic improvements, and nutrient management. Additional action in the land use sector, such as activities on agricultural soil, grassland, grazing improvement, afforestation, can also improve the carbon sequestration of the sector and lower emissions. Furthermore, efforts must be concentrated in ensuring that the sector will have the right knowledge and the right expertise to support resource-efficient and resilient strategies and solutions for sustainable food production. And their knowledge and the innovation must be created and shared, considering farmers as active actors and active stakeholders of the whole process. All these opportunities need to be taken up by member states on a sufficient scale and with the necessary flexibility. Local examples over the past years have easily demonstrated that successful sustainable agricultural practices, as well as implementation of measures helping mitigation, adaptation, and carbon substitution effects do work and do exist on the ground. And this is why the Commission expects, as highlighted in the communication which has been adopted last week on the future of food and farming, that a new policy delivery system, which is more targeted to well-defined objectives, more result-driven, and better reflecting the needs of the territory, will and should provide the farm sector with a more pertinent and a more performant instruments to meet its environmental and climate objectives and challenges while still being economically sustainable. So to conclude, I would like to emphasize that environment and climate sustainability may be seen by many as a challenge or as a constraint. But I believe that this is an important opportunity, first of all, to secure the long-term production potential in the EU. This is something quite critical, but also it's a very important opportunity for the sector, agricultural sector, but also for the whole food chain to become more competitive, more innovative, and also more creative of added value along the chain. Thank you very much for your attention.